Welcome to Young Money. I'm Nozi Pombanjwa. Today we're bringing you a very interesting episode of Young Money. Earlier I had the opportunity to sit down with the founders of a company called Trillionaire Africa. Now these young men from KwaZulu-Natal believe that the business that they are building is going to produce the first trillionaire from the continent. We also bring you a conversation with the world's youngest filmmaker, starting making films at the age of 9. She's now 13 and she brings us her story. Let's meet these young men from Trillionaire Africa. Now, I'm told there's a story behind Trillionaire Africa. Story, let's start off with you. What's the story? And I want you to go back to that other controversial name and where it started.
Okay, so the initial name was Trillion Nigger, right? And the premise was the world's first trillionaire will be black, right? Because 9 times out of 10, if you're going to hear about the world's first millionaire, they're going to tell you it was a white guy. The world's first billionaire, they're going to tell you it was a white guy. Whereas if you're conversant with the history of Africa and commercial activity, you'll know that there've been Mr. Dantata in places like Nigeria, and the examples are endless, right? So that was the premise. We were trying to push this idea that black people can be just as prosperous and stand as a beacon of success. After having interviewed Mr. Tokyo Sehwale, for instance, he sat down and we said to him, so what we're going to do is call it Trillion Nigger, and it's going to say the world's first trillionaire will be black. Right. And he sits down and he looks at us in that gruff voice of his, and he says, yeah, but it's wait, what about my kids? Yeah. They're colored. You know? So then we sit down and we think, it's probably going to limit us as well with regards to the number of prospective interviewees that we could do. So then we expanded it, we called it Trillionaire, and we said the world's first trillionaire will be African.
And you've always gone for the continental play. Let me come to you, Tsukani, with that. Why Africa? I mean, one would think that, you start off in, let's focus on Jozi. It could have been anything, Trillionaire, Jozi. But you guys went big right from the onset and just looked at the whole continent. Why that strategy?
The reason why we went big in terms of the continent was, in the next few years, Africa is going to be the youngest continent, and what has been done everywhere around the world hasn't been done in the rest of the continent. So it's everything that's been done there here is new. Yeah. So it's one of those things. Everybody's coming into this continent, and we have an opportunity to actually create and even be better than countries like China. Because the thing is, if you look at China, for example, when they try to actually get to where the US is at, the level of the US. They industrialize the whole country to a point where the country is polluted. With the continent right now, we have an opportunity to actually do things better than what they've done. We're no longer globalizing the whole country, the continent. It's more or less being innovative. Right. We're trying to get to the continent as quick as possible, so that you can't have people from outside our continent coming in and actually starting things within our continent. And
you guys sound like you're defensive players, but I want to come to the business model, right? Because essentially here we're talking about leadership and business insights. How does having access to those kind of conversations and those kind of tools actually help you to be a successful entrepreneur in your own right? So if I was consuming the product you're bringing to market, what's this actually doing in my life?
Okay, so to give context, my brother and I, we've been in business for 10 years, right? Straight out of high school, I was 18, he was 20. We did like a few years of tertiary, and we decided, look, with the monetary situation at home, so then we decided, look, what's the point of us going to varsity? And okay, in retrospect, I'm not saying people shouldn't go to school. School's important, right? But then we figured we probably have a greater prospect of creating something of value and advancing not only our own lives and those who are immediately dependent on us, but we create something that's worthwhile, we can scale it and be successful. Over that period, it's been 10 years now, and we've made a lot of mistakes that probably could have been avoided. a lot of the lessons that we learn via books, reading Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, those type of books. I think every entrepreneur should read that book. So what we're doing now is through Trillionaire Africa, try and create a platform that will allow for people to get insights from the likes of Mr. Segwale, leadership insights from a former Deputy President Motlanthe. Not so much on the biographical journey of their lives, but why they decided to go left when everybody else was going right. They zigged when everybody else zagged.
So you're creating access to people that the ordinary entrepreneur would otherwise just not have access to, and you're making some of their insights from their experience just that much more accessible.
That's essentially it. Yeah.
It's, the thing is, when you're in business, there's certain questions that you have sometimes when you're in a certain circumstance and you really don't have the answers. This is a platform where we have, with each and every interview that we have different questions that we would have wanted to ask them. Most probably you, the viewers out there, would want to actually ask them as well. So you just go in there and you find an answer. What did he do when he was in this type of situation? And
and another thing to add on that, it's not a question of replicating their solutions, but it gives you a different perspective. So maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, this is the problem, you know? You go into Trillionaire Africa and you think, okay, this is how, there are parallels between my situation and where Mr. Segwale was at this point. There's a different perspective. So then it adds to your answering of the question.
I mean, one would look at like the traditional mentorship models, right? And ask the question, you know, does mentorship or has mentorship found and rooted itself amongst up and coming young entrepreneurs? You know, do they value the wisdom and the insight from those who have walked the journey? And this might be slightly more innovative type of mentorship because you have access to a whole lot of people. But what's your take Tukane, on mentorship, and whether you think this is as important as getting funding into any business?
That's true. It's one of those things where it's an MBA class for free.
Yeah,
it's one of those MBA classes for free. It's for us, for example, when we actually interviewed Mr. Segwale, we went to him. We were supposed to be from 9 o'clock till 10 o'clock. We ended up leaving at 3 o'clock in the morning. No, 3 o'clock in the evening.
What were you guys up to?
3 o'clock in the evening, and he actually cancelled some of his meetings just to talk to us, and it was one of those things.
That's really interesting because on the one hand, I'm also getting a sense that there is a willingness and a desire from mentors, right, to actually give of their insights.
I think one thing that we'd like to emphasize with Trillionaire, right, is a lot of the time now people go into business with the objective of getting a quick buck, right, and that's essentially not how it works. So then a role model becomes a person like a Zuckerberg, and Zuckerberg is extremely exceptional. You know? But then not everybody's going to go from a dorm room to billionaire status by the age of 25.
Right.
On one of your programs, I think it's Captains of Industry with Bronwyn Nielsen, she had Mr. Mark Lamberti on it, and he said one of the important lessons is that bulletproof wealth is built over a period of time. You know, and people are less open to that type.
But you guys are now like walking encyclopedias of insight and wisdom. But you, like you said earlier, you've messed up along the road, right? I want to go to those messed up points. Like, what was the one that stands out for you, and you're like, oh my goodness, we should not have done that?
Oh, where do we start? We've done everything. Everything. Chasing the life. The so-called BE life. Yeah. Because we started with the government.
What's the BE life? How does that work?
Well, see, what happens is you get a few gigs from a few government departments. You can't differentiate between revenue and profit, right? And you just, you know, it's money. It's mine. I earned it.
You want to be seen you want to be seen in the best cars.
Right.
You want to be seen in the best clubs.
Yeah.
You want to be seen with the nicest women.
Yeah.
Only to find that you're not building anything.
Yeah.
You get me? And then this.
And you're not building bulletproof wealth by any measure.
You actually borrowing from your future.
Yeah, you're taking
from your future and right now. Whereas you could be saving this for the future, which is that bulletproof wealth that we're talking about, but you can't really get there.
Now, the film and television industry has been growing in leaps and bounds over the years. And one person who is really taking full advantage of this growth is 13-year-old Zuriel Oduwole. She's already making a name for herself in the industry. Let's catch up with this phenomenal 13-year-old and find out how she's telling the really seen and often not told stories on the continent. Africa is a continent of beauty, creativity, and innovative minds. It's a continent busting at the seams with the world's most sought-after resources, and it's also a great platform to drive competitiveness with the rest of the world. Zuriel Oduwole is only 13 years old, and she already has blossomed into a filmmaker that has chosen to rebrand the African continent from popular views. She is telling the story which has so often been left untold.
On the news, whenever they talk about Africa, they mostly talk about all the negative things, such as the wars, the famine, the corruption, and the disease. They don't really talk about that many positive things, but because I've been to Africa many times, I've also lived here for a period of time, I see a lot of positive things. So I want to show those positive things in my documentaries to the rest of the world.
Surely changing the discourse of the African story cannot be easy simply because of what has already been told. So how has Zuriel succeeded in this, and how is she able to balance being a teenager as well?
I'm actually homeschooled, and so it's the same curriculum that other students would take. I still have math, I still have history, I still have the sciences. The only difference is I'm able to do it at home, so I can get ahead of my schoolwork, and that allows me to do all of these extracurricular activities. So that's how I'm able to balance schooling with these, whether it's creating filmmaking, interviewing heads of state, or speaking to children about education. Now in total I've spoken to 24,000 children in many different countries, including Tanzania, Malawi, Ghana, and here in South Africa.
24,000 children. That is the amount that has been impacted by the wave of Zuriel's drive to contribute to the education of young children on the continent. Above and beyond telling the African story in a way that highlights the continent's growth and diversity, education is one of the only means that will ensure Africa's prosperity.
The reason I chose girls' education is because usually here on the African continent, wherever there's not that many resources, the boys would get them first. So they would go to school and get an education, while the girls would stay at home. And those girls who aren't educated will have fewer options in life when they get older. And so, in line with speaking to children about the importance of staying in school, I also speak to the parents and show them me as an example and show what their children can do if they're supported by their family, and also if they have a chance to get an education. And I've just recently launched my foundation in December of last year. We launched it in Nigeria because Nigeria has the highest number of children out of school on the African continent, just over 10 million. That's more than a population of Sweden and more than a population of Switzerland. So that's a very large number. And with this foundation, I'm proud to announce that our first partner is Dangote Foundation. I'm sure you know Mr. Aliko Dangote is one of the most influential business leaders here on the African continent.
Zuriel has since scooped up a number of accolades and has had the privilege of interviewing world leaders, including Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. With ambitions to continue on with her education, as well as nurture that of other young people in Africa, the possibilities for Zuriel are endless. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. And do remember that if you want the Young Money crew to come to you, all you need to do is just follow us on Twitter. Follow me at @TheRealNozy. And don't forget the hashtag is YoungMoney410. Let us know how you're changing the economic landscape of your country. Until next time, it's goodbye.